Hi, it's Clark on Temptress. I recently sailed a race to Mexico, 1,150 ocean miles round trip, and I took with me this Orca system. Got to use it in a lot of ways. I found some good and some bad with it. I have a whole interview with one of the founders where we talked about the bad and how they fixed most all of it. But today I want to talk about something that I was really impressed with this. But I want to talk about it in general as well. AIS. So in this video, I'm going to dive pretty deep into how to use AIS in a real ocean environment. I've been using it for a while, and I think the implementation that the Orca guys did in their app is, better. So stick with me, and we're going to talk about AIS and why it is changing how boating works. Okay, what is AIS? AIS is this little module you put in your boat, and it transmits your boat basic information out over VHF, and it receives other boats transmitting the same thing. That way it has a little map, or a little chart, as it were, of the boats that are around you and their names and their descriptions and all of that. Sometimes a picture, very often a picture. But more importantly, it gives you the course and the speed of that boat. That's really handy. And if that was all it did, you could do a lot of math in your head and you could really help figure things out. Let me just tell you about what the world was like before AIS. I've been sailing since before GPS, so man, has the world changed. But before AIS, for example, if I was crossing a really busy shipping area, the one that comes to mind is coming north up into the Key West area, that whole outside of the Hawk Channel, I think it's called. There's just so many big boats, and they're all kind of, some of them are going and getting somewhere, like oil tankers from Texas. Some of them are just hanging out, and then all of a sudden they'll take off at their speed, which is like 20 knots, right? It's confusing as all hell. By the way, the ones that hang out and take off also have so many lights on them, you can't find their nav lights. What they are is gambling boats that go just outside the US waters and, back to Florida. Well, I've crossed that at night so many times, and you see something, and you get on the radar, and you see it, and you try to figure out from the radar, is it moving? How is it moving relative to me? It's the middle of the night, could be bad weather, you might not have total control where you could just pinpoint, move around them. So it's unnerving, and very often I would change course a lot because I know they couldn't see me if I could barely see them. They're huge. Well, AIS lets me know what they're doing, know if they're moving, know how fast they're moving, and what direction. And I could use that just like that information, but man, that's still a lot of work in this day and age. So the AIS information goes into your chart plotter, and then a good chart plotter not only plots the boat and gives you a little vector saying where it's going to, but the good ones will give you some information about where they'll be in the future, assuming they don't change their course. I think my Garmin, it's been a while, but I think my Garmin just says they're a collision hazard or they're not. It just displays them in red or a different color, and it might beep at you when a red one comes up. And that's good. Oh my God, that's a good thing to have. But I want to talk today particularly how this whole Orca system does it, because I think it's implemented really, really well. And what we're going to do is I'm going to use screen captures or video captures of the screen that I did during the crossing, various times when we had ship interaction, and go through them and, talk through. And you're going to see why you would really want something like this on your boat. Just prop-wise, the reason I am not holding up their tablet, their actual display unit, and I'm using this as like my little prop, is a good thing on them. I recently bought a teleprompter, and the cheap teleprompters use like a tablet to reflect. So I'm not reading a script because I don't work from the script, but I'm reading my outline right now, looking right in your eyes. The brightest tablet I had by far is the Orca. So it's now my teleprompter. It's going to do a lot of jobs around because it's a good tablet. All right, let's dive into it. Okay, I'm going to go through this on my computer, so I'll be looking here when you see me looking away from you. But of course, you're going to see it on the screen nice and big, and this will become voiceover. Okay, I'm going to run through this and talk through it. The first capture I want to share with you is early in the race. We're tacking back in Tampa Bay. We hadn't really figured anything out yet, particularly this AIS. Seriously, I put the Orca system in hours before, and we're just starting the race. So we're concentrating on getting the boat going fast, getting out of the bay, and using normal visual cues. Well, that ship, we could see, but when it was still a long ways off, we were going like, is that going to be an issue or not? Turned out it wasn't an issue, but it wasn't like a mile away either. So, it was a thing. We would have liked to have more information. And it was a while before I figured out the more information. Now, this next one I want to show you happened in the middle of the night on the race. So we really didn't want to make big course corrections if we didn't have to, or at least ones in a direction that wasn't going to help us. Also, if you can see from the little line on the front of the boat, the little pointy line, it's swinging around pretty good, and it swings around more at different times. That's because we were in really rough seas. The boat wasn't completely under pinpoint control, let's see. And remember, we had sails up, and when your bearing is switching back and forth like that, you need to keep the sails in the middle. And the short of it is, you just can't adjust the boat's heading lightly in those situations. So here we are. Let me go through what you're seeing. We're in the middle of the ocean, so there's nothing to see anyway, but I have it in night mode at this time, so everything's black, but everything would just be saying deep. The little line coming off our boat's the one at the end of that blue course, represents 1 hour. So in an hour at that course and speed, we'll be at the end of that line. That's just a handy thing I like to set up, so, it gives me a scale. The ship is the thing with the lollipop on it, and since I've selected that ship, over to the left, there's information about it. So we can see that ship is currently 5-ish miles away from us. It's been closing for a while. I decided to come up towards the ship so that we would cross earlier and he would cross on our bow. Early on, we were seeing this crossing information be sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, often red. That's saying, yeah, he's likely to hit you. So he was an issue. Now, he might have changed his course if we just held it out for a while. But like I said, it was rough conditions. And coming up a bit didn't hurt us that much because we're still early in the race. There was a wide latitude of where we had to go. We basically had to go south and west. So anything southwest was to our advantage. That one was a little bit hairy. That one, well, like I said, middle of the night, waves were coming over me. There was points when the device stopped working because a wave hit it and it was all wet and I couldn't use it anymore. That was on me. There's a way to tell it, hey, stop using the touch screen, use the buttons on the side. I just didn't know it. But having that device made it really a lot easier. Also, we didn't see that ship until it got a whole lot closer. And to do the levels of watch that were required when shipping can only be seen for a mile or so, you got to be quite diligent. You got to be looking every 10 minutes, right? When you have this AIS, at least the big ships, they're the ones that go fast. They're going to give you this information a long way out. And you can kind of count nowadays that they all have this. The other thing that's really nice is, and you'll see later on, even though we're small and our lights aren't as bright, they could see us on their AIS. They're professionals, and I'm sure they've got alarms all over the place. It might not be because they care for us as other human beings or anything, but their insurance company sure as hell cares. So, everything's being recorded nowadays, and they're going to be watching for you. Again, love AIS. Let's go to the next interaction here. For this next one, I want to talk about what happens when a ship passes ahead of you, particularly how it's represented on the Orca AIS. I like this. Okay, in this graphic, the 1 hour line still shows off the front of our boat. The line that is the course that the ship is on is going to show off its little mark. And where they become the closest, we get a little dot here. Then we get a line from that dot to the time that we're going to be closest to each other on our line. And that's pretty cool. So in this case, what we're seeing is that goes back basically to the end of the line. So in an hour, we're going to be as close as we are. And when we are at the end of that line, where we'll be in an hour, the ship will be where the dot is. So you can see that they're going to pass ahead of us. And if you go back to the text, it would say by a fair margin. I'm going to show you now one where we're going to pass ahead of the ship. And it's similar, but it's just a little bit tighter. So I want to show you this one second. So again, we have our line and shows an hour. In this case, the ship is going to be closest to us in about a third of an hour, a little more. The ship is going to be where that dot is when we are where the end of the little line connecting the two is. So the ship is going to pass behind us. This gives you such good situational awareness. At a glance, you know it all graphically because our minds are graphic. Now, it's all there in the text, and you can interpolate it, and you'll want to because you want both. But situation awareness, it's what fighter craft, it's all about, that edge, that quicker ability. You might say, well, it's a ship. It's not that fast. Yeah, but it could be the middle of the night and you've got 100 other responsibilities. You may not have slept for a couple days. This is gold. Okay, the next one I want to show you was a very close pass. It was in way better conditions. It was still during the race, so we did not want to change course if we didn't have to. It was during the day, so we could see the ship, which made us feel a whole lot braver, right? And this ship passed within 1 or 2 tenths of a mile ahead of us. Now, you can see by the fact that our course line isn't swinging as much, the seas were down, we had really good control, we were off the wind in a place where we could have changed course 20 degrees without a problem, without changing sails. So we just rode our course. And this guy actually, when he got closer, was very professional, and he just changed his course by a few degrees, gave us the space we wanted. Honestly, he came closer than most ships. I find that most ships seem to want to be a mile away from sailboats if you have AIS so they can see them. This last one I want to show you is, well, this is that area that I was talking about that has a lot of shipping all tied together. There's a lot of ships, particularly petroleum ships, that go to Texas. And they all have to get out of that area by passing between the Keys of Florida and, and its associated out islands, and the Quesal Bank, which is about halfway to Cuba. It's a fairly narrow range. So ships come in, funnel through this area, plus the local shipping and pleasure boats and stuff. There's a lot going on here. So this was the image at one instant. We had 3 ships coming from the east and 2 that you can see right here coming from the west. Now, with the AIS, we were able to know what the conditions are going to be when they get there. We could see into the future, as it were, and we didn't have to do much. It turned out we could go through. Now, the first 3 ships, we were motoring at this time. There was no wind. So we had to avoid them legally because they were on our starboard side. But it turned out that we were narrowly going to have them pass behind us, all 3 of them. We were chatting in the cockpit, and our conversation is a lot of, hey, maybe we should turn, maybe we should hang back and slow down and avoid them. But the AIS says, nope, it's going to be okay. We're going to pass by a good margin. Keep going. So we did. And also, most of the ships, when they got, sort of close, just changed the course a couple degrees and gave us, a wider margin. And that was very nice of them. Had we turned to avoid them, and I know I've done this before, and you avoid one, and that slows you down. And then there's a whole bunch more you have to avoid. And you can get in a situation where you're just like this frog that's trying to cross the road, and he can never find a gap. So we went through this set, and all was well, and all was so much easier because of AIS. Now, this next display is really cool. This system can get the AIS from your local AIS receiver on the boat, the thing that's transmitting your position. But it can also get it from the internet if you're either close enough that your cell phone is connected to the internet, or in our case, we actually had Starlink running. So we were connected to the internet all the time. Well, these ships are connected as well. So anybody that's connected to the internet, including us, transmits their position to a web page. And these are all the ships that are in the area at the moment. The ones that are 20 miles away, you don't care about really, but it's just kind of nice to have that information. And the really nice thing is you get redundancy. If you were to lose your transmitter, now you're flying blind, but you're also mute. They can't find you. So it's extra important you know where they are. You can get the information from the internet, right? And also it's just kind of a neat graphic watching all the big shipping that's out there. So in short, AIS makes life easier and it makes sailing safer. And those two feed off each other, because the easier it is, the easier you can make good decisions. And of course, that makes it safer. Plus, just the information makes it much safer. You'll find that you can actually pass much closer to ships, particularly when they're going to pass behind you and you have really good control over the situation. So it brings up your courage as well as your confidence. Couple little caveats I want to talk about AIS. The AIS transmitter, the AIS I have on my boat currently isn't a transmitter. What's installed is something called a DAISY, D-A-I-S-Y. It's a receiver only, and that's what I've been using for a while now. It is incredibly inexpensive, like really inexpensive. I'll try to find and put a link in the description for you. So if you can't afford AIS, you can afford this. It's like nothing. And it gives you all the other guys' advantages, but it doesn't transmit. Now, I've since bought a Garmin transmitter. I haven't installed it in Temptress yet, but it's sitting on Temptress waiting for the next cruise. That has a little feature I think all of them have, the ability to turn off the transmission. And that's important if you're going to go out in harm's way, as it were. There's places in the world with piracy. Like, I guess right now, the hot spot, Venezuela's been a problem for a long time. Probably not right now so much. But I guess off on Honduras, I got to tell you, I'm a little bit out. Before I go out again, I will be looking at the appropriate sources and looking at the crime that's happening and, figure it out. But say you're going into a hotspot that actually has active at-sea piracy. They're faster than you. They have a big engine. They're a fishing boat converted to pirates, or a fishing boat that just wants to go fishing for sailing yachts that day. You want to have the ability to be stealth. You turn off your AIS. You're not saying, hey, here I am. Get through that area, turn it back on. The other thing that's come up recently is the Bahamian government has passed a whole lot of rules, and they make things way, way, way more expensive than they used to be. That's their decision. They've got some of the best cruising grounds that are really close to the United States. So, that's how they make their money. Can't really fault them. Basically, they're renting out their cruising spot, and even at this higher rate, I think it's worth it. But one of the things they've done so they can make sure they know where you are and make sure essentially that you have paid the taxes required to use their islands is they require all boats to have an AIS transmitter. So if you're going to go to the Bahamas, you need to have an active AIS transmitter. I guess that's most all I want to say on AIS. It's almost as big of a deal as GPS. GPS was a total game changer. I was one of the early guys to do the chart plotter thing. I did it with some software on my PC before there were chart plotters. That was a big deal. Actually, before both of those, radar existed, and honestly, that was a big deal. I think the next biggest change is AIS, and it implemented well into your chart plotter and radar. So having all of that in the same place really, really brings the situational awareness up to the point where it almost feels like you're playing a video game and not sailing a boat. And that can be dangerous in its own way. Remember, you have eyeballs, look out, actually see things. Keep that situation in your head in both ways. These help you, you are sailing a boat. There's so many videos of a boat crashing right into like an anchored boat, and you look at it, and there's nobody at the helm. They've got, the chart plotter controlling the autopilot, and the guy went down and, I don't know, took a nap or ate dinner, watched a movie, whatever. Don't be doing that. Keep a watch. If this video was helpful, please give me a like. It really does help the algorithm and, push these videos. If you haven't, please subscribe to my channel. I'm kind of getting up there, and I would like to have a plaque on the wall behind me that says 100,000 subscribers. Bye from Clark on Temptress.